What is entity SEO? There's so much news about how Google is learning more and more about your site. This is truly changing the nature of the SEO game. Learn right now on The Edge.
Go!
Your weekly digital marketing trends with industry trend-setting guests. Powered by your digital marketing pioneers, Site Strategics. This week's featured guest is Dixon Jones, CEO of Inlinks.net. Now, here's your host, Aaron Sparks.
This is Edge of the Web Radio. I'm your host, Aaron Sparks of Site Strategics. Every week, we bring you amazing guests to talk with about trending digital marketing news, as well as unpacking a key marketing topic for our digital marketing audience. Whether or not you're part of an agency, a freelancer, or part of a firm in the marketing department, this show is for you. So check out all of our recent shows over at edgeofthewebradio.com. We talk SEO, social media, search engine marketing, website design, conversion rate optimization, and much more. Been doing it for a little while now, going on 9 years. I just realized I was correcting myself of when we actually started, but we're closing in on 400 episodes. Not asking you to watch them all or listen to them all, but it would be great if you did. Edge of the Web is brought to you by Site Strategics, the title sponsor of the show. Pioneers in the agile digital marketing methodology, where our core specialties are technical SEO, SEM, social media, marketing management, conversion optimization, and omnichannel media broadcast, just like we're doing right now. So if you're interested in what agile marketing is, it's results-based marketing that works. So if you're interested in what we can do for you, just give us a call at 877-SEO for Web, or 877-736-4932. There's a gratuitous plug for you. Make sure you check out all of our episodes from this interview, our bonus podcast, as well as our second part of our interview here, covering all the recent marketing news, as well as some Google updates that we're going to be talking about with our guest today. Let's meet this week's industry expert, Dixon Jones. I want to introduce our entire audience to Dixon. He's an international SEO speaker, internet marketing advisor who works as a mentor to founders of internet technologies. He was at the first ever PubCon, and my gosh, he's a TEDx past speaker and has spoken all over Europe and the U.S. on search strategy and online link building, including keynotes. He's also talked about internet marketing and search engine optimization all over the world for nearly 20 years. Dixon, that's a fantastic record there. Welcome
well,
to the
I'm
show.
I'm still here. So, that's a good sign, really.
Absolutely.
There's plenty didn't make it this far.
No, you better believe it. And part of talking through it and communicating about SEO is having to be fresh, having to keep learning and reinventing yourself, but more importantly, constantly educating yourself. SEO is one of the industries that's ever changing. Give me your perspective of how you've gotten through the last 20 plus years in this industry.
Man, I tell you, the big thing for me was moving from agency side to tool side. I set up my first agency in 1999, or consultancy. I didn't know agencies existed then. I thought, called it a consultancy. It's funny. Some things have changed and some things remain the same. But back then, I remember the reason I set up my first agency was I was typing in. I had a website. It was a murder mystery games website. I used to write and run murder mystery games for a living before before all this came along. And I found a website, so I then learned a little bit about search engine optimization. And I typed in murder mystery games, and there was a big advert at the top of Yahoo, who were the big guys at the time, for Nike or Adidas trainers. And I thought, this is crazy. Yahoo are sitting there trying to build a search engine, and then they're trying to monetize it with an advert for trainers. Surely they should be monetizing it with the guys that are coming to the top. So I thought, there's a business there. So that's how I got into the game, really. Mm-hmm. And it was so much easier then, really, honestly. Yeah. Me and a couple of other SEOs in the early days at PubCon 1, which was literally a pub in London. I remember the three of us hiding out in a little room and talking to each other. And we linked to each other, and between the three of us, we were number 1 to 3 for search engine optimization on a bunch of search engines for a good couple of years until Google came along and decided to to dispense with that.
That must have been pretty darn funny. Just seeing who was on the top, who was on the bottom, and a little bit of snarkiness back and forth, right?
Oh, there was definitely snarkiness back then. Yeah, in many ways, it's got better now. I think the industry has taken a long time to get to some kind of level of respectability, and I think it's still got plenty of snake oil salespeople. But I think it has been helped with Google having a team to communicate to the SEO community, and Microsoft trying to keep Google on their toes. I think those things have helped. But at its foundation, marketing is still marketing, right? So a lot of SEO is still about helping your brand build up a brand. Your best way of selling Hoovers is to make people type in Dyson. That's the best way to do it. If you can become if your brand can become an entity, then you're pretty much on the right track, really.
Absolutely.
Or a verb.
Absolutely. So that actually is kind of a tee up to the evolution of what's happened in search, and you've certainly witnessed a huge change from where we were. Pushing keywords into content and moving content, page sculpting around, getting links, getting inbound authority, and those are still, to a particular degree, valid techniques. But we have gone light years ahead in the evolution of the algorithm.
It's leapfrogged, absolutely. I mean, I don't know why people didn't see it coming. But this is what happens in the world. One of the books I just read is Black Swans, where you kind of we're very, very bad at seeing the unseen. So until it hits us in the face, we didn't know it was there, and then it was really obvious afterwards, and we think it's very important. But this whole movement towards understanding things, not strings, as I call it, or entity SEO, I think has been coming for 5 years. I mean, it was there when Google bought Freebase, or the company behind Freebase. It was really obvious where they were going to go, and I think for several years, the competing ideas of a link-based, PageRank-based algorithm and a let's build a knowledge graph of ideas and thoughts competed in the Google search results. Mm-hmm. But clearly now, the entity approach is coming out. So that has huge numbers of implications for us, because you're right. It's not about just optimizing around keywords. It's around optimizing around ideas. And so semantic, where the semantics, the difference between a bridge and a pontoon is nothing, is not significant for Google. They're both bridges.
Absolutely.
And that's changed the nature of the game, really.
Absolutely. So let's unpack that for a second. And Bill Slawski, we've had him on the show a number of times. He actually is always tracking down the patent changes. And at any point in time, Google may be having hundreds of patents out there. Mm. And there was a breadcrumb that he was seeing as Google invested more and more in understanding and understanding natural language, understanding contextual natures of things. So let's talk right now. Let's educate our listeners about what semantic search is. So what is semantic search?
So for me, the idea of semantic search is that Google has got much well, a search engine doesn't necessarily, when you search for a bicycle holiday in Australia, mm-hmm. Google, a good search engine is able to understand that query in a much more generic sense. So a bicycle journey is the same as a cycle journey, is the same as a cycle trip, as the same as a cycle tour. The semantics around those phrases are all the same thing, and Google is likely to, or a good search engine now is likely to bring back the same page, not necessarily using the same words, because right. They understand the synonyms much more closely, and they understand the meaning, a little bit more of the meaning behind those words as well. So semantic web search is, for me, is really this layer of understanding about the concepts that are being asked about, mm-hmm. And then comparing that to the concepts that are being talked about on web pages, and marrying that up. So I see the difference being a massive encyclopedia in the middle. And I know someone will shout at me and say it's not an encyclopedia. it's a database of ideas
and relationships, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
and relationships between those ideas. And the interesting thing is that those relationships between those ideas are different depending on the context of the original query. So, if you're looking for a horseshoe, then it really does depend on whether you're a fortune teller or whether you're a farmer.
Exactly.
There are different uses of although farming with horses probably is a little bit old school, but
well, you never know. I mean, Skynet could actually come in, and now we're completely crippled with all electronics, and we have to go back to the basics. Not getting weird there at all. But you're absolutely right. It's literally understanding the searcher's intent. And understanding the contextual meaning of what they're looking for, and also with the algorithms, learning the contextual nature of the content that they're serving up to that user. So there's the transaction right there. Groucho Marx had a great line. One morning, I shot an elephant in my pajamas. How he got in my pajamas, I never know. But I got to have the cigar to do it. So I mean, there's semantics right there. So I mean, the first search engines, Google, Bing, DuckDuckGo, Yahoo, were lexical, and that means they're looking at literal matches of queries without understanding the query meaning, and just returning links that contain the exact query. We're now light years ahead of that now, and any user of any search engine understands that. They're seeing the patterns of understanding that the engines are bringing back, right?
Yeah, if anybody wants to see a really good talk on semantics and this kind of stuff, there's a Google engineer called Paul Ahar, Ahaar. There may be an E on the end, and he's got it is on YouTube, but it's really hard to find. But it was a Google Webmaster event, and he started talking about how the system is working, and he really goes into some easy to understand concepts around semantics, and it's well worth having a watch. It's always great when you get something from Googlers that is beyond. I love Gary and I love John and I love Martin, but they're not allowed into the core algorithm. They've got their own Chinese wall in there. Yep. So when Paul Ahar comes out and does something, I met that guy once at a very early PubCon in New Orleans before Katrina, and Matt Cutts brought all of the engineers down to a 2-hour session in a hall, and there was somebody talking about PPC and somebody about all different Urchin and analytics and stuff like that. But I saw Paul Ahar was talking about the core algorithm, and I just thought, and it was Q&A, so it was run around. You could just ask anybody anything. I just sat next to him and just listened to everything that he said for 2 hours.
Oh my God!
And it was brilliant. So if you hear anything by him, let me know, because I'll go and see it.
Yeah, it's a rarity that you actually get the brilliance from the engineers out there, because they are they're regularly guarded. They have to be guarded, but you see who Google has actually hired, and what a fantastic opportunity to be able to just get a fount of knowledge there from some of the core individuals. So semantic search is literally where we are in SEO. It's not a method. It is now what we're navigating. And I want to make sure our listeners understand that if they are not looking at their content in the way that Google's looking at it, of the relationship of entities, and again, entities are facts, are concepts, are issues that are related to your services or anything that you're actually trying to be an authority of, right? There's a relationship, there's a congruency of different things that actually make what you're talking about even more valuable, right?
Yeah, absolutely right. And it's that that relationship is in context as well. So you can be in the movie industry, but that can have so many different things. You may be supplying cameras to cinemas, you may be filming, you may be an actor, and you're going to be in a very different contexts in those, even within the same industry.
Absolutely.
And the algorithms now link those ideas together, I think is really interesting. So topicality becomes a very interesting backdrop to SEO, you know, trying to understand words within topics, within, you know, verticals, or within within wider ideas, really helps to granularize, you know, what you should be saying if you want your business to shine at the right time and not be seen at the wrong time. Because I think for a lot of this, it's about the search engines trying to get narrower and more pinpointed in the information that they're giving, even though they're on one hand saying, right, these things are synonyms and they're all the same concepts, so the same page comes back. But by the same token, it only comes back in the right context at the right time when the user actually wants that bit of information that's there.
And there's so much work being done on interpreting that query. So BERT was actually rolled out in 2018 by Google, and that is bidirectional encoder representations from transformers. And that was for natural language processing, kind of pre-training. So BERT is kind of the glue between entities. They had to have not to get too simplistic, but they had to have a way to interpret intent, not by what the noun you're talking about, but how you're getting to that noun. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think before then, there's another concept which is a simpler one called n-grams, which is kind of like you can go through the a million books, and that's what they did. They basically read a million books with a computer and counted how many times the word London was next to the word bridge, and how many, you know, and so they counted how many times any kind of phrase up to however many words, let's say 10, I don't know the number, but you know, how many times those sequence of words were all used in the same order. And that allowed them to show, and actually Peter Norvig, who I mentioned on on the other video, really, I saw a presentation by him showing n-grams in action, and they used that to sort of do this the search query that shows you the what you're about to type and where it predicts your search and stuff. But I think that has moved on, because that was one directional. They kind of were moving in one way, and so you weren't going to tie an idea back to a previous idea very easily. So but they could sit there and say, right, okay, London and bridge, when they're together, they're together. They probably don't mean London and they don't mean bridge. They mean a thing called a London Bridge. And so that brings that down into a concept of its own. And so if you're going to see bridge and London on the page, they want to see if it's together and whether it's its own entity.
Right.
But the Bertie idea then pretty much says, you know, you can be talking about two concepts in either order, and it's not dependent on, you don't have to talk about London to talk about a bridge. You know, they can pick up the ideas in different ways.
Right.
I think I described that really badly. I think I pride myself on a bad answer there.
This is the challenge, is that we as SEOs, we're trained in a good deal more analytics on measurement of particular key phrases and repetition of phrases and certain elements that were more fixed. We are now in the abstract. We are now in the ethereal plane, so to speak, of these entities and the larger nature of knowledge that's being pulled together by the engines that we can actually tap into and be able to relate our page based on what it's actually accumulating, right?
But it's not as abstract as you think. As you know, you try, you know, we can map those. We can see a corpus of content, whether it's a bunch of web pages or whether it's your own website, or it can be any set of content, and you can just run a natural language processing algorithm in it, and you can just see all of the entities just on the page, and you know exactly what each of those entities are. And you can see, you know, when you see engine, you can see whether it's referring to a search engine or a combustion engine, you know. And so these kind of things are doable, and I know because we do it, and it suddenly turns it from abstract to pretty bloody obvious, actually. Pretty bloody obvious. You can just see all the entities on the page. When you take your content and strip out all of the stuff that humans care about, and then you see the actual underlying things that somebody is talking about, you can see whether you've made a mistake or not. Absolutely. It's a lot easier than it appears.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad you brought us there, because we were already doing kind of what do you want to say, semantic coding before we even knew what we were doing. Headlines are semantic coding. Different levels of codes of emphasis, strength, strong tags, acronym tags, block quote tags, inline quotations, and citations. Those are all semantic coding to be able to communicate the intent of that page and the entities. We've already been doing it. We just didn't interpret it that way, and now we're in a space where we have relationships of pages, passages, and strength of content that we need to roll through. You're absolutely right. Once you strip all the user experience away, if you're not hitting the nail on the head with a topic and subtopics that are related to themselves, as well as referencing the larger map of knowledge, then they're off base. So get that right first.
And it's when you've got it right, it's easy to see that you've got it right. You know, what I do find interesting is when Google comes back with a diverse set of results. I think this is kind of interesting compared to when it comes back with, 10. Well, we have 10. There's 10 blue links, but anyway, but a bunch of results that are very close in meaning. I think it's really more interesting when Google comes back with 3 or 4 different ideas around a phrase, because it hasn't really understood the original user query, and that's still happening, but less and less. And especially if they're now confident enough to roll BERT out onto pretty much every search, then I think that there's a strong level of confidence on their part that they're understanding what the user wants, they understand what's on the page, and it would appear that they're understanding what's in the paragraph on the page now. So this is a whole new level, which we knew they were at really, but it's now being made more transparent, I suppose, as we go forward.
That's beautiful. So, I mean, from SEOs that are listening to this, how can they actually avail? How can we avail ourselves to this new evolution? What are some key tactics? We stripping all the user experience away, right?
Yeah.
What should we be doing to make ourselves aligned with more of an entity relationship, as well as a content relationship, series of tasks, right?
There's a few things you can do. There's a free API that Google has. They have an NLP API that you can look at a body of content, and it will extract out what it sees as the entities within that content. So you could put your main competitor pages or people that are competing with you into that, and sit there and see what entities they're coming out with. And the thing is, if they're your competitors, then you need to make sure that you're talking about those entities and in a way that Google can understand on your content as well. The only issue with that is that we're not entirely sure that Google's NLP API, or they've got a desktop version as well, so you can just cut and paste some text in, is pulling out as many entities. It's certainly not pulling out as many entities as we think there are. It's very good at pulling out, and Bill Slawski's pulled out some patents on this. It's very good at finding entities that are starting with a capital letter, for want of a better word. So things like brands, locations. It's very good at understanding those kind of entities.
That's kind of a gimme, though, isn't it?
Yeah, you'd assume that they could do that, but they're not very good at picking out, concepts like, search engines or
London Bridge, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So London Bridge be capital letters. So capital letter is okay. Yeah.
Okay. But, so if my punctuation is off, then it wouldn't understand, right?
Web development, rubbish at getting that as an idea, but it is an idea. It's an entity. It's a concept. It's a thing. But they're not going to pick it up very, very often in that API. What we're doing. There's a free thing on InLinks. If you go into the homepage and go to resources, we're tracking every week. We're running a different analysis over a different market sector and working out what percentage of entities that are in a sector are being mentioned in the top 10 results in a sector are actually being picked up by Google. So we have a very aggressive entity extraction program, and Google has theirs, and typically they're only picking up 20% of the ideas of the concepts. So they've got a way to go, and it's different in different industries. So you can see the SEO industries that are really on it. The casinos and those kind of casinos has problems because they're talking about jackpot names that are sending them off to different kind of ideas. But certain industries that are big on SEO or aggressive on SEO, the entities are well understood and the percentage goes right up. Stuff that's less aggressive on SEO, they're still not as good at. So you can see how the SEOs are starting to help Google understand the content that's on there by writing about entities and topics in a more accurate way.
Yeah, we're feeding the beast, aren't we?
We are feeding the beast, and they're getting us to write machine language and schema and stuff for them just to
and completely unpaid as well. That's
I know. We are mugs, aren't we? We really are mugs to the machine. Yeah.
Well, we want to actually dive into the InLink software. It's a huge. We're a huge advocate of that, as well as
you guys got in it really early, by the way. So these just a bit of kudos to Erin here. We kind of went live around about January, and he was waking me up in the middle of the night with ideas and suggesting how to what was wrong with it all, and back then probably fair amount, but we carried on working on it. But yeah, I think we kept you up a few nights.
But it's a beautiful tool. It's a beautiful tool. There's a number of other things I want to talk about. One of the key things that we teed up to was natural language processing. And unpack that for me. What is natural language processing, and how does it relate to semantic SEO?
Okay, so natural language processing is really an algorithm. It can be many different types. There are many different types of natural language processing algorithms that essentially will go and read through text and try and break that out into some kind of meaning. Because the problem with just a bunch of text is that it's very hard for a machine to then connect the dots just out of the blue. So back in the days of PageRank, it had all the words on the page, and you kind of had keywords, and it didn't really know the difference between those words or the relationship between those words. So it kind of relied on things like anchor text to links in and that kind of stuff, or the titles of linking pages or whatever it may be. It wasn't really connecting the dots very nicely. But natural language processing is about trying to turn that body of content into breaking it down into its constituent meanings. So whether that's just seeing how many times the words are next to each other, or whether it's more meaningful and saying what concepts are close to each other, and that's really where it's got to. It's sitting there saying, right, I'm reading this body of text here, and I know that this probably means the same as this over here, and it means this, and this. So it's taken out all the underlying entities and just putting them in a table, really, and sitting there saying, right, now I understand that this page is about these entities, these ideas, and whether an entity is really an item in a database, a knowledge graph. So for us, it's Wikipedia, because Wikipedia is open source. So basically, Wikipedia great for an entity, but it's also they've got Wikidata, and then Google has its own knowledge graph as well. Right. But these are all bodies of things that are essentially encyclopedia articles, and so by putting everything, pulling all those natural language processing ideas and bringing them down and saying, right, it's about this database item, this database item, this database item, this database item. Then it can say, right, you know what? If you're talking about this database item and this database item, then if you want to be quality, you should be also talking about that one, that one, that one, and that one, because these are always talked about in the same breadth, right? By stuff that we think is authoritative, or that a search engine might think is authoritative. So it can then tie those ideas together and say, you know what, if you want to talk about this, or if you want to explain this in your content, then you probably ought to be talking about this, and this.
Right, absolutely. So it's the relationship mapping that is core at both the entity knowledge graph, but also the natural language processing. So
and the natural language processing is just extracting entities. Well, to me, it's extracting entities, for want of a better way of describing it. But there are other ways of running natural language processing algorithms. But that's the one that I think that Google is really paying attention to, what entities are on the page.
And I'm actually just going to do a deep dive into what Inlinks does, because I want to showcase to our listeners what a part of Inlinks that is incredibly valuable to us at Site Strategics, and it's the content briefs that section that you provide for Inlinks. All right, and I'm not going to give we're going to unpack a number of different pieces for Inlinks, but the content briefs themselves are incredibly valuable, because if you actually go through and actually execute an SEO brief, you can actually create all the different entities and be able to have the tool analyze the different type competitors based on a keyword or key phrase and actually analyzes the entities of information that your competitors are also writing on as well. Now, here's the cool thing, everybody who's playing at home. You literally can actually construct a roadmap of content that you need to match, like Dixon was talking about, based on this type of pattern of recognized entities and sub-entities that are out there in the ecosystem that they've already mapped by the research tool itself.
And you can drill down and say, so it'll say, right, you put in a keyword, you tell me a keyword, and it's probably already analyzed your own page content if you've got content, but if not, it'll come up with, as you say, suggestions. But what it's really doing then is going and finding your competitors. You can change your competitors. You can modify that if you want to, and then it's reading that content and understanding and extracting those entities. And it's got a knowledge graph right there in front of you, and you can click on everything in that knowledge graph, and it'll link everything to a Wikipedia article. You can see exactly what we mean, because there are so many different definitions for different words, and you can sit there and say, right, this topic is being mentioned by all 10 of these people, and are you mentioning it or aren't you mentioning it? And if so, how many times are you mentioning it? How many times are they mentioning it? Do you need to make more of that kind of topic or not? Right. And just with a couple of clicks of buttons, you can add the ideas to your content brief, or, as you say, I mean, I tried to get rid of that content brief thing when we came out with a new editor.
I fought you with it.
Yeah, we had to put it back again for you, didn't we? You loved it. So
it's incredibly valuable, and thank you for doing so. I don't think I've had any relationship with the software platform that actually worked with me in this, because here's the deal: is that being able to have a content brief in subsections, and it gives you long tail targets that you want to write towards as well. Be able to provide that to our content writers, it really, and I'm not taking anything away from our content writers, it writes itself, because we're mapping to these subtopics based on frequency, based on what we're seeing the other competitors rank for. So it literally was a godsend. And I had been analyzing so many different tools to be able to put together our process, part of our process of content writing. And this really matched so many pieces. And on top of it, it was not just a one-way brief. It's actually a scoring mechanism that you can pull that content back into the same brief and be able to see how close you are to the frequencies and the topics that you're supposed to be writing about.
It's actually got a little bit of a secret sauce in there as well, because we've got our own knowledge graph. Then we can see not just what topics everyone's talking about, but if there's some semantically very close topics to there as well, then we can bring that in as well. So you may find in the list of recommended things that you should be talking about, some ideas may appear to be more prominent, or we might be recommending something a little bit more than you can see on the competitors' pages, because we know that it's semantically very close to some other bits of ideas. And then it also comes in the question finder as well. So we can, I don't know if you want, on that same tool, we've got a question finder tool that will sit there and say, right, these are questions that are mentioning or around the keyword that you've just asked us to talk about.
Exactly.
And that's very, very aggressive, but it can also find synonyms and semantic, differences between words. So it's not just doing what a lot of the other question finder tools do, which is just try and do exact match keywords. It's trying to get deeper into those ideas as well.
Absolutely, and you can quickly pluck those questions. I mean, literally, this is people also ask research that then you can graft it onto these key concepts. So think about this, and we highly recommend you jump in and check out the tool, because you can run a brief, you can actually analyze your content, and the tool is going to give you, hey, you might want to actually answer this question or these series of questions, and now you have the content structure that we still have, and it's fantastic. Don't ever take it away, please.
No. What I'll do now is I'll try and make it so that you can click on those and get the Wikipedia article, so you can drill down to that and and make that a bit richer. So we'll work on that one.
We're building software as we're talking. This is amazing. All right, so it's a fantastic.
I say me, when Fred gets back from holiday,
Fred's going to be pissed at me. But here's the deal: is that it's not only an analysis tool, but it also deploys schema. So you can so let me back up, go a little bit higher, 30,000. I need to be a salesperson for you, Dixon, because I'll tell you what.
All right, mate. I love it because it's a salesperson and you're a customer. So,
it's
you're paying me to sell. This is just amazing. Thank you.
He's just selling to himself.
I'm selling to myself. Guys, we got to try this. So part of the tool is also analysis of the entire website content, right? And you don't have you don't have a cap of pages, a ceiling that you go through. I mean, it's certainly different rates and what have you. But you can analyze your entire 100-page website, and Inlinks is actually analyzing the knowledge graph, basically the entities that you're writing about, and it'll actually give you a cloud. And it's the most amazing thing, such a visual of all the deep wells or the nodes of information that you're writing about. And you can also see if you are too scattered. And there's been a number of times that I've actually used that cloud, not only to sell a new client, but also show the client, okay, you're way off base. You're trying to talk about this, but you're over here talking about your team so much. You've pulled away so much information, and it's very similar to realtors whenever they're trying to optimize towards particular sections of town, but all their content is so disparate that it's diluting, it's pulling away from the central mass of information that they're trying to actually roll through.
Yeah. So what we're trying to do then is we'll build a knowledge graph of your content.
Yep.
And actually it can be tens of thousands of pages, but it does get a little bit more expensive at that point.
Yeah, absolutely.
It breaks that down into topics just for your content. But then at that point, when we found that, let's say it's 100 pages, and you found 100 pages and 99 of them are talking, or 70 of them are all talking about your main business model.
Right.
The thing is that if you don't take some action there, then you're cannibalizing, you're potentially cannibalizing your pages. Google doesn't know which page to put back for any particular search query, because you've got lots that could be there, and you're not pushing all of the topic to one page.
Exactly.
So I kind of put it like this: if you were the only website on the internet and somebody typed in your dream keyword, you would still have to have one page come to the top of the list.
Right.
So you should at least try and make sure any other mentions of that defer to the page that's about it. And so you can do that in two ways. The first is a human in the loop. You say which page is the page that is the authority about that topic.
Right.
And then as soon as we've done that, as soon as you've done that, a human in the loop has done that, then it can say, right, okay, I'm going to now write the schema, and I'm going to write content schema. I know what the other things on the page are. It's about this, it's about this, and it's about this. And it says, Google, if you don't understand what this is, it's a thing or an event or an organization. And in case you don't know which one it is, here's the Wikipedia URL, and that's all in the schema, so so Google can't get it wrong. And then it also has about mentions schema as well that says it also mentions this, 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 and this. But these are subservient to the to these main things up here that you've raised above the rest of the content. So that helps a machine you're turning it from hoping that Google will implicitly understand to explicitly telling it what it's about.
All right, I'm going to take the ball for a while here and talk about this because this is really important here, is that we do want to expand upon schema and why it's so important, but I'm going to just leap ahead here. If you didn't hear what he said, it literally automatically dynamically creates schema objects, ideas, concepts, topics, items on the page that you're targeting, okay? with
and it injects it in the page as
and
well.
it injects it in the page. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where we really didn't. I wanted to just codify that moment, is that there's all these tools out there that will be able to inject a certain type of custom schema, and there's certainly some good tools in the WordPress modules and what have you. But this is actually interpreting, understanding your entities, and also citing the actual Wikipedia or Wikidata references to actually point to what this is actually meaning in front of Google. So it's not just an internal schema that you're reprocessing your content into a more valid structure type to be able to pass that hidden note over to Google. You're actually referencing and citing examples of what this is all about. Now, I'm just going to tell you some data here real quick. We actually did this for one of our clients back in December of last year. We actually dialed in target pages and we isolated certain schema. And there's another side of the software that I want to talk about as well. But by deploying in links, we actually saw a 25% increase within a 30 or 45 day period of time of organic traffic snapped into place immediately, because we had, I think, 5 target pages of authority pillar page content, and the schema was on the page. And then the last part of the InLinks tool is literally dynamic links that are populated through the entire website based on the topic that you're trying to achieve ranking for. Well, I should say the topic, the nodes of content. The entire site has been digested and looks for opportunities to be able to create links and then points those links to that pillar page dynamically. So you can inject that JavaScript into every one of the pages, and it will literally take anchor text that it sees as a direct relationship to what that target page is and drops that anchor on that, as well as the schema on the target page. What a beautiful thing, right?
So I mean the internal linking being the last part of the loop, but but I mean what you should do. It'd be great if you wanted to do a case study, and we'll put it on the site. But easiest link for the client is that you've ever had.
Absolutely.
We do love some good case studies to put onto the site. So,
and we've had more actually, and we've done some more tactical strikes on some specific other clients, and not fully deployed a massive amount of not really massive, but a larger scale series of target pages, but very tactical. And we're seeing the exact same thing. As that schema is deployed, we can carve out, we can clean up any of the schema that we don't want to be cited. And sometimes there's a little bit of misunderstanding just because of the nuances of that particular topic. You got to handhold it a little bit, but my gosh, it's being deployed, and all the links are actually being JavaScript created, which is completely parsable and spiderable. And now you have an entire link. I reference the analogy as like guns on a battleship. Literally, you can point them all at one target at the same time, and you just raise up the value here. So I'll only back up here because that's the tactic, and I haven't even talked about the strategy. Why are internal links so important on a website?
Well, so they are important because they give context. So they are basically, if you get them right, they are basically pushing the authority not by the page anymore. I mean, as we had in the earlier interviews or earlier show, the news came out that Google are now really analyzing and potentially showing things by passage rather than by page. So they're going, they are now clearly at the sentence level at the very least in understanding things. So they're not understanding things. My pet hate is domain authority. I don't mean Moz's, but I don't like evaluating anything. I hate when
there's a score.
When people evaluate a website and have a score for a whole website. That's not the way it ever worked. PageRank was always at the page level anyway, but now it's down to the sentence level. So so that meaning you want to be the best at pink widgets, and so you want to be the best at pink widgets. So of course you're naturally going to talk about pink widgets quite a lot on your site in different pages in different contexts. But ultimately, you want to tell a search engine and humans at the same time where they can go to find the authority for pink widgets, which is your page of content specifically aimed at pink widgets. So those internal links are then pushing, every time you mention about pink widgets, pushing the user and pushing the search engine in the context of pink widgets to the authority page on pink widgets. So that's how it works. It's not rocket science particularly. It's a development of sort of the page rank iteration kind of idea, topical page rank really.
Right.
And it's sitting there and saying, right, we're pushing. If you're gonna have a page about a particular subject, then every other page should then link to that landing page. So that is the page that is clearly about that subject. And then, once you've got that right, when you've got your cornerstone content right, then you can just bring in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages, and it'll just go read through the text and say, oh, you've already talked about pink widgets. We've got a link to that over there. You've talked about this, and it just build up this link map, which you can then edit on the front end, which you couldn't do 5 years ago. No. That wouldn't have worked because they hadn't got the JavaScript being rendered before they went into the indexer. So there's a presentation out there from Martin Splitz on their web rendering service, which kind of says, right, we now basically don't put anything into the parser until it's already been rendered through the DOM and rendered, basically. Right. And that wasn't always the case. So now, JavaScript, that kind of JavaScript anyway, is just there from the first. It doesn't matter whether you've got JavaScript on a page or not, it will still render at exactly the same point in time.
Very good.
It get passed in the same point in time.
Can't tell you how geeked out I am because I've loved this tool for this entire year, and I've been experimenting with it. And on top of it, just to let our listeners know, you can also edit those links right there in the application, and you can move the links around so you can go to a particular page that carries a link and adjust the content or move it to a particular keyword based on intent, based on your own understanding of that sentence structure, what's more useful for the user. So you can automatically have it generated, but I mean, the grooming is also very, very easy to do. So again, this is a tool that's never existed before, and it makes our ability to steer. I mean, think about it. If you're actually going through a 500-page website and you're doing hard-coded anchor links or hard-coded links, cross links to be able to lift up a pillar, right? To go through and then remap those to maybe a new pillar page is a very daunting task.
Because you will then have no audit trail of what you've done because you've gone through that. And as soon as something changes, and things change a lot more than you think. I was going through my own Dixon Jones website the other day and looking at some of the stuff I wrote in 2008 and thought, you know what? That needs a bit of work now. That's not so cool. So you've got to write another piece of content, but then you got all those backlinks sort of going to the other page, and I suppose you could 301 the page to a new URL, but that's not as cool as at a granular level, just sitting there saying, right, I've got a slightly different idea now, and those links can change on the fly. There is no other tool that does it, and it's. The installation is one line of JavaScript on the footer of your website, and that's it. So you can use a header and footer plugin if you're in WordPress. If you can do it in Google Tag Manager. So we got people doing it in Tag Manager.
That's what we do.
So it's not difficult to put on, and it takes away a lot of the pain with a relationship in an agency relationship, I would imagine, because you can talk to the client and well, firstly, you've got those content reports, and you can show those to the client and show them why they need to rewrite the content. But the internal linking, then you don't need to go and take up developer resource time every single time you want to improve the link structure or add content schema. And I think that's important. Because developer time is usually at a premium in these businesses.
Absolutely. I don't think I've ever actually had a crush on a piece of software before. Yeah.
You're a very, very sad man. Welcome to my world.
But it solved so many problems. I would love to be able to see an API connection to Google Analytics, to be able to see traffic flow patterns to the steerage of target pages. I don't know if you guys...
Well, you know what? I mean, it's more likely now that I'm going to put it into the new Microsoft Analytics system.
Probably so.
There's a much better UX from that point of view. So, it's probably they're going to leapfrog on that one.
Yeah, you better believe it. Again, again, this was not. I just want to let our listeners know this is not a pay promotion. This was a tool I wanted to unpack and really showcase.
And I'm very grateful for you giving me money and the airtime at the same time, man. That's really quite cool.
Stupid son of a gun. You're more than welcome. Last thing here, and just briefly, because we really did. I kind of did this ass backwards, all things considered. But I want to come to schema and why schema is so valuable. We talked about inlinks and I should say interlinks between pages. Just to finalize, put the end cap on this. Schema is very valuable. Why?
Well, there's 2 or 3 reasons. So firstly, we only create about and mention schema, and we also create FAQ schema. But there's a lot of other types of schema as well, and there's plenty of other tools that do a lot more.
And your JSON LD renders just like everything else, so everything's compatible. There's no conflict.
Yeah, there is a little problem if you FAQ schema. If you've got another tool that uses FAQ schema as well, then you pay a little bit of attention, because it wasn't a problem 6 months ago, but Google now is not happy if you've got lots of FAQ schema on the page. So that's something to be wary of. But that's what happens when the world changes. But the important things about schema at this level, what we're trying to do is we're trying to make it easier for machine learning to understand what's important on a page, so they can understand the main hierarchy of information on a page. But FAQ schema is really important because and a lot of schema is important because it comes out in featured snippets, and you can start seeing it in different ways on Google results, the richer the results. We also have seen that about schema really seems to help with Google Discover. So if you're an Android user, then the Google Discover thing, which I'm afraid I'm an iPhone user, but they're using this kind of entity relationships to understand what entities the user is interested in and what entities are in content to discover content on a page. So it's useful from that point of view as well. But ultimately, it's helping Google to make, or helping search engines to make decisions about content in a way that doesn't require them to read and understand every single time. They've got the information in a database that they can recall very, very quickly. So it's moved towards a sort of a knowledge graph approach. Ultimately is important. Actually, it's important for a speed thing from Google's point of view. I don't know if we've got another 3 minutes, but I'll try it. You can just cut me off if we haven't got time. But so one of the reasons that Google went from PageRank first to entities first is that the number of pages on the internet are in the trillions, at least. So there's lots and lots of pages on the internet,
right? And
if you've got if every one of those is a record in a database, that's a very big database, a lot of records. The interesting thing is, if you have a look at the number of articles in Wikipedia, for example, it's in the hundreds of, in the billions or tens of hundreds of billions. It's not in the trillions. So there's a massive difference in factor. And as more and more content comes out on the internet, it's not about more and more things. It's about the same things over and over and over. So if you go to an entity first approach, then your database, instead of being about trillions of records, it's about hundreds of billions of records. And then that record itself can sit there and say, and these are all the web pages that are talking about it.
Right.
But now that you've got an entity, a database for the entity itself, you don't have to then add information just from web pages. So you might be able to add social security data, or you might be able to add, rich movie data or other bits and pieces into the main record about the entity. So you can then have a lot more richness, which is where you see the knowledge panel on Google as a representation of a knowledge graph coming out in the knowledge panel on the side, where you've got a picture from one site and of an actor, and then the plays that they've been in and the films they've been in, and and what university they were at and that sort of stuff. It's taken all that data and put it into a data set of its own. But it makes the web scalable again, basically. The only danger for us as SEOs is that we're, as you say, feeding that beast.
Right.
And so we're feeding data into it. Google, the trick as an SEO is getting the user back to you. If a search engine is going to have the whole encyclopedia and never going to have to send you
that's a whole nother conversation.
That's a whole other thing for a different day. Yeah.
Yeah, because we're literally giving them everything, and Google's wanting that consumer more and more on the Google property, not your own property. But again,
it is a challenge.
It is a challenge. I certainly appreciate the time today. I mean, schema is certainly an imperative. Any SEO that's not deploying schema, you've got to do that. And there's 400 different types, but that's the translator, so to speak, or that's the fencing in of subject matter to be able to connect to these entities that we're talking about in the trillions. And so Wikipedia is not going away anytime soon, is it?
I don't think it is. And even if it does, it doesn't really matter because we've got our own knowledge graph now. It's used to inform us. And we know that Google used Wikipedia as a training set as well. So it's I don't think it's going to go away. I think Google actually needs it right now, which they might be a bit annoyed about, but I think they need.
Well, sir, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and certainly I see the passion of content entities, schema, and semantic SEO. Keep up the good work over at NLinks, and on top of that, there's a Facebook group of semantic SEO as well that we certainly want to promote. Last couple questions here. What bugs you about your industry right now?
It depends. Every answer it seems to come back as it depends. That's what I hate about it. If you can't come back with something a bit more constructive than it depends, then we don't know enough about our industry. We need to be able to get to a place where we can say something a little bit more constructive than it depends in an answer. That's
a nice friendly jab at John Mueller. Just want to let you know.
I wasn't painting anybody in particular.
See what I did?
We all do it. I've probably done it today.
I was doing a schema relationship right there.
Yeah.
All right. So conversely, no, you're right. Is everything? We got to be able to take a stand, and everything is too ubiquitous and too fluid right now, and we are getting some stabilization, obviously, with everything that we've talked about, but at the same time, there is a very easy way to escape accountability and responsibility with an it depends response. Well, conversely, what excites you about your industry right now?
Oh, entity SEO. Entity SEO for me, it's really fun to be back at the and also there's back at the start of an innovative technology. So I haven't had this buzz since I started, Majesticing back in 2009. I think I started 2008-9. I started pushing Majestic and I kind of stepped back from that a couple of years ago and took a breather and started to advise a few companies, as you said in your introduction. But ultimately, when Fred's the CTO of Index, and when he contacted me from France, I hadn't met him or anything, didn't know him at all. He filled out a form on dixonjones.com. It's clear he was way ahead of the game in terms of what he'd already got. So I thought, well, I'm just going to dive into this one. So it's really good to feel that I'm innovating again and in an innovative place in a technology that is exciting people, or some people, not everybody, but the ones that go on the demo. You can just go onto the site, and if you come on a demo with me, you get a free month. So that's the kind of the sprat to catch a mackerel kind of thing.
You realize he's pushing crack. I mean, because as soon as you actually get in there and see a dynamic schema rendered as well as dynamic JavaScript, you can't say no. So
it's great, and I know I need to talk to people one by one on this thing because I'm getting sticky. People are 8 times more likely to stay as a customer of mine if they've had a 30-minute chat with watching the damn thing than if they don't. So they go in there and they're still thinking about keywords, and they're still thinking about, where's my search volume for the phrase this or whatever. They're not getting the underlying idea,
right.
And they don't know which buttons to press because it's new technology as well. So
well, I mean, you are in the lane, obviously, and I think everything's converging. you took the opportunity, and this tool certainly is not only novel, but it's actually ready now for what's been converging over the last 5 years. So.
Yeah, I hope so. I think so. I think we're in a good place.
Absolutely.
As you know, so yeah, watch the denial of service attacks begin.
All right. Well, you know what? I did want to ask, what was it like being around the Queen? You actually won an award.
I did.
The Queen's Award.
Well, Queen's Award for Enterprise. So I actually won twice. That's not me as an individual. That was actually with Majestic. But yeah, you get to go to Buckingham Palace and drink champagne with the Queen. That's awesome. and a couple of hundred other people. But in her living room, it's a pretty big living room, I've got to say. So I didn't talk to the Queen at all. But I spent most of my time actually talking to Princess Michael of Kent, who. Probably over in the States, you don't know who that is. But anyway, she's one of the good ones. And and she was really, really interesting. It was just before Brexit, and I had all sorts of interesting conversations. And it was interesting to see the insights that she was giving. I won't go into there because it's just be rude, really. But I did enjoy it. And the second time was Princess Anne, who I was in a line out, and I had to sort of shake a hand as I went past, and so I knew she was going to say, so what do you do, and I thought, well, I'm going to have to say something. So I was trying to think of a quick way of saying what we were doing, and I said, well, we're kind of like a scrappy Google, and she came back without a beat, and she said, "You are not a scrappy Google. You are a crown in the British Empire, a crown in the British Commonwealth, or whatever." And so she knew exactly what she was doing. She's giving me a bollocking for suggesting I was anything but innovative.
That's awesome. All right. So, was there anything that we could promote for you today? Anybody?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I'm not here for any kind of.
I didn't think so. No, we're just going to pass on that one. All right. So thank you so much for your time today. It was amazing, and we want to lift you up. You've been doing a bang-up job on the software, and we're going to be continually using the software. And we certainly recommend any SEOs to go check that out, because it should be one of part of your bandolier of techniques and tactics on a regular basis. Seeing that we're in entity SEO now, right?
Exactly.
All righty. Well, thank you, sir, and we will be in touch. Hopefully, you can bring you back on the show here after a while, because we certainly have, I think, more to talk about.
Okay, I'll try not to talk about inlinks anymore.
I doubt that's going to happen. All right. All right, so be sure to check the trending news that we covered with Dixon Jones in the bonus news podcast episode and the bonus YouTube episode that we roll out, as well as part one of our interview. And certainly hope everybody enjoy this. And again, we want to make sure that you check out everything that Dixon's doing on social. So follow him on Dixon_Jones. Facebook is Dixon Jones, as well as Dixon Jones on LinkedIn. So go bug him over there and tell him how he did on the show. All right, please don't forget to like and subscribe to Edge of the Web on YouTube. And if you're really feeling up to it, we'd certainly appreciate a review on our iTunes platform to make sure that we keep on optimizing our show. Thanks to the sponsors, Site Strategics, as well as Ahrefs. Go check them out for 7 days for $7 over on their side of the fence there. Make sure to check out all the must-see videos and much more over at edgeofthewebradio.com. That's edgeofthewebradio.com. Next show, we're going to be talking to Shay Rowbottom. She's coming back around. It's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting, and boy, she goes a mile a minute. You think this one was fast? I got to keep up with Shay. She's a bundle of energy. So a few coffees are going to be prep time for the show. Do not be a piece of cyber driftwood. And from all of us over at Edge of the Web, stay safe and stay well. Take care. Bye bye.